you're free.
Freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. Come together right now over me.
Hey there, it's Lars Larson. Right now, you're listening to Nevada Matters.
Thank you for that, Lars Larson. You're being heard also right now on 1180 AM, a Lotus broadcast radio station throughout northern Nevada and northern California, including all of Lake Tahoe and Truckee, California, all the way to Doyle and Portola, as well as Susanville. We're very fortunate. It's one of the strongest signals we've ever been on when it comes to a terrestrial signal. Plus, remember that we have listeners all around the world. I'm talking about maybe 1.6 million listeners. You tell your family members, friends, and associates to go to americamatters.us. You heard me right. Go to americamatters.us, not only for the live version of this special Nevada Matters, where I pick and select impactful people on the great state of Nevada and the United States of America. And I'm actually finishing up an interview I started last week with Senator Omer Rains right now. And Senator, the last question that I gave you, and if you don't mind, I'm going to continue to refer to you as Senator, was that I asked you, how many presidents did you know? And out of those presidents, which one sticks out the most in your mind?
Well, I knew all presidents from JFK forward.
Wow.
To Bill Clinton. I've not met personally George W. Bush or Barack Obama. But up until that time, I had met or knew all of them.
Unbelievable. Anyone in particular that sticks out as a, and I'm serious, as a favorite in your mind?
Well, clearly the two about which I know the most would be Ronald Reagan and Jimmy Carter.
Wow.
And that may surprise you because they're diametrically opposed in so many ways.
Right.
But there are also many things in common. And as I said last week, in enumerating some of the accomplishments of Carter, whatever one thinks of his administration, whatever, Carter, more than any other president in modern American history, has certainly demonstrated how a former president ought to conduct himself.
Amen.
You know, it's an amazing story, and it's amazing that he's alive today.
Oh.
And I remain a friend of Carter and his entire family.
Oh, I love that. Senator Omer Rains is our special guest on this special Nevada Matters. Okay, how about other leaders of other nations? Who have you known?
Yeah, before we leave the president,
sure.
I've got to talk a bit more about Ronald Reagan.
Oh, please do.
Because, Reagan, number one, his Western White House was in my district in the Santa Ynez Mountains, Santa Barbara County. And, in fact, the Reagan Library is also in my former district in Ventura County in Simi Valley. And so I got to know Reagan really well. I disagreed with some of his programs and policies, but as a person, I liked him a lot.
Oh, I bet.
And we remained friends for over 30 years. And unlike what most Republican candidates today suggest, not only was Reagan a person you liked to be around, he was very easy to work with, always willing to compromise when necessary. In fact, he recognized that politics, he would quote Walt Whitman, his famous book, The Art of Compromise. He would say, politics is the art of compromise. And in large measure, that explains why his best friend in Congress, without question, was Tip O'Neill, the very liberal Speaker of the House of Representatives. And, there's a book out now, I think it's called Tip and the Gipper, about that relationship. And Reagan, in the White House, informed me once, Omer, I don't know what I would do without Tip.
Wow.
Because he protects me in so many ways and fashions. And as a result, I feel obliged, to work with him and also to assist him in some of his endeavors. But too many politicians have today lost sight of that camaraderie, that collegiality that ought to still exist. Reagan was a complicated person. We all are. He continued the policy of containment that went on for over 40 years. We hear repeatedly about the Berlin Wall, for example. Great speech, one of the great speeches in modern American history. Did it cause the Berlin Wall to go down? No, not at all. But it did continue the pressure on the Soviet bloc.
Right.
It was after he was no longer president that the Berlin Wall came down because of the rise of Lech Walesa in Poland and Pavel and Czechoslovakia and other of the Eastern Bloc nations that had suffered under the horrible yoke of Soviet control for 40 years. So, many people, because they keep seeing that speech, think that caused the Berlin Wall to go. It did not.
No.
But, nevertheless, it was a great speech. And Reagan, again, was a person you couldn't help but like, and I liked him a lot. I think insofar as the California legislature is concerned, which is more important in most ways than being a member of Congress in much larger districts, I was probably his best friend, even though we were of different parties, because, again, he was principally in my district, and I'm probably one of the few Americans who have ridden on Air Force One with both a Democratic president and a Republican president.
I think that's absolutely remarkable. By the way, real quick, before we go to my next question about other leaders of other nations, you've got a text that just came in, and he says, you probably don't remember me, but I would like to say hello to you, Senator. And that's from Ty Cobb, who worked for Ronald Reagan at the time.
I do remember Ty Cobb, and in fact, he does a marvelous job of emceeing and helping organize the National Security Forum held in Reno every other week or so.
Yes,
and with extraordinary guests. And no, I'm very impressed with him. He's a very articulate, very thoughtful person.
Well, he just said hello to you on the show. I
appreciate that.
That's wonderful. Yeah, a big, if you will, someone no stranger to the microphone here at America Matters Media. So I'm going to continue on with some of the questions that have actually come from the audience and have been texted in to us, and that is, what other leaders of other nations have you known personally, Senator Rains?
Well, quite a few. Some of them people may have forgotten. But they would certainly include Menachem Begin and Anwar Sadat, because I was at Camp David Accord. And they would include Francois Mitterrand of France and Gerhard Schroeder of Germany, and many, many others. I mean, I could go on and on. So I was really blessed. Prince Charles, I lunched with many years ago, and I've stayed as a friend and as a guest in many of the capitals and homes of presidents of the world, including the U.S. White House.
Right.
So, I've been blessed.
You have been blessed. And you know what? Before we go to break, I do have to ask you a question. Did you ever have any interaction with someone I'm a big fan of, because who else can spend almost 3 decades behind bars, come out, and a year later become president of his nation like Nelson Mandela did?
Nelson Mandela was one of the great people with whom I ever met. I worked as a consultant to the South African Constitutional Revision Commission. I was in South Africa for 6 weeks as a consultant on American democracy, and I met frequently with Mandela. And I knew I was in the room with a man of true greatness, a man, notwithstanding 28 years in prison, much of it on Robben Island, where I've been.
Right.
Came out and held that nation state together. No other man could have done it, or woman.
Unbelievable.
Simply couldn't have.
Unbelievable. Now, listeners, if you just tuned in, we're talking right now to Senator Omer Rains, and we're talking about someone who has so many legislative accomplishments that it's totally staggering. I've asked Senator Rains, would he consider doing a Senator Omer Rains show on a weekly basis? He's agreed to do that. We're going to learn a lot more about him, but remember, right now, he has not only influenced the great state of California, but the entire nation. Okay, of all your accomplishments, which one, and be thinking about it during the break, of all your accomplishments, Senator, which one really stands out the most to you? Listeners, come join us. We're at the Reno Town Mall. We still have 3 seats available. You can text 775-237-2266 with your questions or comments for the Senator, or you can call and speak to him direct and have the honor of talking to Senator Omer Rains at 844-790-TALK. That's 844-790-8255.
You did the unimaginable. You beat cancer. And ever since your victory, the sun shines brighter, air smells sweeter, and every moment you spend with loved ones is even more precious. But now, you've just been told that you have cancer. Again. There's a caring team of experts nearby and ready to help you fight cancer again at mycancercameback.com. Whether the cancer returned to the same place in your body or has now moved to a different location, there are non-surgical treatment options available, even if you've already had surgery, radiation, or chemotherapy to fight cancer the first time. Find out more about treating recurrent and metastatic cancer with a caring team of experts close to home at mycancercameback.com and stay undefeated.
Every 34 seconds, someone suffers a coronary event. Every 40 seconds, someone has a stroke. You may be at a higher risk for a serious illness than you think. If you own life insurance, does your policy offer living benefits? Quality of life. Insurance provides the value of living benefits with every life insurance product at no additional cost. Traditional life insurance pays a death benefit if you were to die prematurely. Quality of life insurance allows you the opportunity to use your death benefit while you are still living. Without proper planning, a serious accident or illness could rob you of your financial independence. Make sure that you and your family are protected in the event of a chronic, critical, or terminal illness. Quality of life insurance is life insurance you don't have to die to use. Contact Brad Feeney with BJF Insurance Services at 775-265-6787. That's Brad Feeney, 775-265-6787.
Are you planning to move? Paragon Real Estate Resources can help you sell or buy a home anywhere in the United States. We provide a home resources coordinator to manage all aspects of your move. We recommend qualified real estate agents and other services to prepare your home for sale. Best of all, if you sell or buy a home with our assistance, you could be eligible to receive a tax-free real estate commission cash rebate. We can also help you obtain a mortgage at competitive interest rates. Our lenders offer fixed and adjustable rates, conforming and non-conforming loans, plus FHA and VA financing. We can also assist first-time buyers with as little as 5% down. And when it comes time to move, we can refer you to qualified movers or other companies to assist with self-moves. Paragon Real Estate Resources helps make moving as easy as possible. Call Paragon Real Estate Resources now at 1-800-235-7513 to learn more, or visit ParagonRERI.com.
All right, we are back now with a very special Nevada Matters, where we have for the last 2 weeks now, including today, been interviewing Senator Omer Rains, and we had a question of him before we went to break because he's had so many accomplishments in his life that it truly is staggering, to put it mildly. Of those accomplishments, Senator Rains, which ones really stand out the most for you?
Well, let me focus on legislative accomplishments because
Okay.
I think I've had a few others. But definitely, insofar as legislative accomplishments, working to help establish and expand Redwood National Park, also later Channel Islands National Park, the work I did in the area of human and civil rights, and certainly taking the legislative lead in connection with the promotion of women's rights,
Right.
as well as my work for the protection of innocent children and the elderly. But I'm probably best remembered for a lifetime of work to preserve and protect all aspects of our environment.
Wow.
Clean air and water, specific and lasting actions to preserve and protect our beaches, our rivers, our mountains, our deserts, our forests, and so on. The other major interest was that of political reform and promotion of alternative forms of energy. Those were sometimes successful, sometimes not. But those are ones that really stand out.
Wow, unbelievable. Now, you know what? I hate to do this to you, but you've had so many accomplishments. I'm sure you had to have some failures as well. Are there any of those that stand out?
Well, actually, I'm sorry to say there are two, and perhaps they are the most important of all. Campaign finance reform and reapportionment. Every year, I introduced a bill for campaign finance reform. As chairman of the Senate Committee on Political Reform, I could always get it out of my committee. But on the floor, there was no system that you could imagine that would be more favorable to incumbents than that which already existed, where they got their money, by and large, from special interests.
Right.
And they did not like anything that would restrict that.
Right.
And the U.S. Supreme Court, in passing Citizens United, has made that all the worse. So now we have billionaires that can actually contribute $1 billion to a campaign or several campaigns.
Unbelievable.
And the U.S. Supreme Court says that's the equivalent of one human being of over 320 million people in this country speaking, because they said it's free speech. Well, that's an insidious decision, and we see the result of it today as we see billionaires and millionaires and special interests up the kazoo contributing these enormous sums of money. And believe me, they expect something in return on their investment.
Amen.
It would be the ultimate naivete not to understand and believe that. The other one, which is perhaps even more important, is that of reapportionment. I kept introducing a bill that would take reapportionment out of the hands of the state legislature, because the state legislature, and I was, in large measure, again, in control because of my chairmanships.
Right.
But there is nothing more important to an incumbent than the ability to draw his own district lines or her own district lines. It's called gerrymandering. And what has happened is the following. The two-party system, in my opinion, historically has served this country relatively well. Why? Because on the right and the left, they were always competing, knowing full well that that party which best or most effectively occupied the center was probably going to prevail. What did that mean? Both parties were looking inward. They were looking toward each other. And that caused collegiality. It caused the type of camaraderie that existed because they knew they had to do it. With this gerrymandering, Tom DeLay, former congressman down in Texas, whom I will publicly say was ethically challenged due to reapportionment and gerrymandering, managed to flip 7 congressional districts in one election.
Wow.
How did he do that? Through drawing these dragon-like districts that we see all over the country today. That's just insidious. It's got to be changed. It simply must be. And what has happened, rather than looking inward, now each party looks outward because they realize, oh, I have a safe district. Almost every member of Congress has a safe district. They're not going to be defeated by a member of the other party. So what a Republican has to do is constantly look to his right, to the other extreme, the other politicians. He protects himself in that fashion. Same with the Democrats on the left, looking outward to the left. So rather than looking toward each other, they're looking away from each other. And so we have the impasse that we have today, where hardly anything gets done. And, you have what's sometimes called a party of no. Reagan, incidentally, would never have been a member of a party of no.
Right.
Everything he passed, either as governor of California, and I worked with him closely, or as president of the United States, where I also was close to him, almost everything required bipartisan support. Otherwise, he would not have been successful. He would not be the iconic person that we think of today. So reapportionment must change. That was my single biggest failure. Because of U.S. Supreme Court, decades ago, came out with a decision that said, you ought to be looking at communities of interest. In 1970, Reagan actually vetoed the reapportionment bill. Why? Because Bill Burton, a master cartographer, and probably the most, even though he was the Speaker of the House of Representatives, the Majority Leader, And he went to every single member of Congress and said the following, and it happened with the state legislature as well, that we're going to give you, and he's talking now to the Republicans, we're going to give you an incredibly safe district, because California was going to get several new congressional districts because of the increased population. So we're going to give you have now a 50%, 55% Republican edge in registration. We're going to give you 80%. Well, these Republican congressmen and state senators and assemblymen were orgasmically happy.
Oh, sure.
But what it did, it meant that Burton could draw these lines that would allow these additional seats to all go to Democrats because of the excess population taking it from other districts. Reagan, to his credit, vetoed the reapportionment bill of that year. That was 1970.
Wow.
And he really angered a lot of Republican incumbents who really were thinking only of themselves and not the party, because Reagan said, given this reapportionment bill, there is no way that the Republicans have a chance over the next 10-year or decennial period to capture a majority. I mean, we're destined to be a minority party. So what happened after that veto, which could not be overridden, it went to ultimately into the courts, to the California Supreme Court. They appointed masters who came up with a brilliant plan, and Reagan agreed because they stuck to communities of interest. Rather than these Reagan-like districts, I mean, they drew specific lines around municipalities, around counties. For example, I had most of the Central Coast area, about 1.5 million people that I represented. So the county of Ventura in its entirety was in my district. County of Santa Barbara in its entirety it was in my district.
Wow.
It wasn't chopped up with funny lines. Today there is a line going from the area of Goleta, which is just north of Santa Barbara. It's about 100 yards wide going over to Bakersfield. And it has nothing in common with Bakersfield. It was designed for gerrymandering purposes.
Right.
That's the type of horrible thing that we see all over the nation. And that's why there are very few incumbent members of Congress that will be replaced.
Right.
Not until this changes.
Yeah.
Very, very few. There are very few up at play.
Well,
They may be replaced by members of their own party who are more extreme, and we've lost some really fine Republican and Democratic members of Congress because of that. And but extremism has taken hold. And we're seeing that in body politic all over the country today.
Amen. Amen. Now, you know what? I have time for one other question because I read so much about you from our last show to this show, and I know so much about some of the law clients that you had, like Johnny Cash, Steve McQueen, Charlton Heston, and so many other, if you will, unbelievable clients like Evel Knievel. And here's what, though, I'd like to end our show on today, because next week at the same time slot, it'll be the Senator Omer Rains show, and you'll be listening to him. He might be interviewing a guest from another nation. I don't know, but you know what impressed me the most was you've been given recognition by several countries for humanitarian work, that you've done for all of these many of years. But is it true? Is it really true that the government of India is now actually erecting a statue in your honor? And if so, where and when will that be?
Well, I wouldn't have otherwise brought this up, but I am incredibly humbled by this action. But on the occasion of my 75th birthday, September 25, a ceremony will take place, and the life-size statue of me unveiled near the mouth of the Ganges River in
Wow.
India. And I'm incredibly humbled.
You've got to be incredibly humbled, but I'll tell you what, you also are incredibly deserving, because I have read, everything about you, and I'm telling you, it's amazing to me, that I'm reading about one human being. Now, listeners, let me share with you, if you've missed any portion of this very special Nevada Matters with Senator Omer Rains, remember that tomorrow morning at 4:30, you heard me right, at 4:30 a.m., you'll be able to hear the recorded version of this show. And then next week at 4:30 on this very same day, Wednesday, you'll hear the brand new show, the Senator Omer Rains Show. Senator, I want to thank you for what you have done, not just in the great state of California, but I want to take this opportunity to thank you for what you have done around the world, not just in this great nation of ours, coast to coast and border to border, Senator, but what you have done around the world. If I could, I would erect a statue of you myself, but I'm so glad that India has chosen to do that, and I can't wait for that event. As a matter of fact, I just might try to attend.